Hi, welcome. Welcome. Hi, Irina.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, welcome to the Corona Survival Guide for Couples and Families. We're here. I'm Jeff Fine, certified EFT therapist in New York.
And I'm Irina Wen, certified therapist and supervisor in EFT in New York City as well.
Yeah, we're so excited to bring you this show because it's really stressful times, trying times for couples and families. And so, Irina, you had this amazing idea. Why don't you say a little bit about it? What we're hoping to do for couples and families now.
Sure, absolutely, Jeff. So I think we're all very much aware what a stressful time and really unsettling time we live in. And on top of a lot of anxiety that's just in the air, we're also all stuck at home together. And as much as it is an opportunity to bond and spend time with our loved ones, it also can be very stressful. That can trigger a lot of emotions, it can trigger conflict. And we wanted to make this show to make sure that we support couples and families out there and give them some tips and wisdom from our own lives, other couples and family therapists in the community that we will be inviting, and hopefully supporting everyone through this very stressful time.
Yeah, really. And so our goal really is like we'll be doing kind of short segments. Everybody has so much going on right now that we want these to be manageable bites of information.
Hmm.
And we're going to enjoy inviting, as you said, other therapists and family therapists to help all of us learn how to survive and thrive.
Yeah.
Right. And today, we have some really important topics to cover for all of you. Um, and so, Irina, do you want to kind of start talking about some of the topics we're going to cover today?
Sure. I think the topics that we talked about to bring in for today's our first episode is the importance of, first of all, connection. Because I think the connection, especially at the time when we're at the time of social distancing, at the time of potential physical isolation, that's one thing that can get us through this really stressful time. And a lot of people at this time, I think during the day, are staying in a sort of functional survival mode, potentially having to shut off feelings and just getting through the day to make things done because there's a lot on everyone's plate, right? And so it's really hard to potentially create time to even know how I feel, how my partner feels. And what we would encourage is to intentionally set that time, intentionally carve out moments where you two can connect with each other and check in and see what emerges, right? See maybe some anxiety, fear, hopes, whatever those feelings might be may emerge.
Right. We're really encouraging you to make space
Hmm.
for your feelings and to be open to each other's feelings and to really listen, right? Because it can be really hard to make that space when the stress is high and we're in lockdown mode. And so we're really encouraging couples and families to listen to each other
Hmm.
and make that
Hmm.
space for those kind of connections, right?
Absolutely. And
And that's
it's important as you're talking about sort of listening and creating that space, Jeff. What I'm also thinking that two people can often be, and I see it in my clients, I see it in my own personal life, two partners can be on different pages about how they're reacting.
yeah,
One might be feeling really this intense anxiety and may benefit from talking about it and get the support and get some soothing and some reassurance. Another one might prefer in stressful times to cool things down, to keep it sort of leveled, right? And maybe push the emotions down and stay in that functional mode. And both modes are very adaptive. Um, at the same time, when there are two partners in the same couple with these two different modes, that can create a little bit of conflict and friction. So how do you get through that?
Right. We kind of go to what we know when we're feeling threatened or have some sense of danger. We
Mm-hmm.
go to the kind of the coping strategy that has worked for us.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that's kind of keeping feelings in, maybe minimizing the danger,
Mm-hmm.
or externalizing your feelings and need to process a lot
Mm-hmm.
externally with your partner. And that goes for other family members too. To be aware of how other people in your family process the threat that we're under. It may be children have different styles,
Mm-hmm.
parents have different styles. And so we're encouraging being open to people's different styles of coping, and kind of accepting that now, and making space for these different ways of processing this threat of this COVID virus, which is so
Absolutely.
scary.
Yeah, and communication is key here. Perhaps conversations about those different styles. How are you dealing with this? I'm dealing it with this way. How can I support you better? Will be helpful for couples.
I like that a lot, Irina. Actually, making explicit. Hey, I know that you like to really kind of talk a lot about this, and it's my style to kind of minimize it and not want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so making that explicit gives people the opportunity to say, well, how can we support each other in our different ways of coping,
Mm-hmm.
and not
Mm-hmm.
and and not try to get each other to do it differently right now, but
Mm-hmm.
work with each other's coping styles.
Yeah, absolutely. And that brings us to another point that is important about when we talk about feelings in general and
Hmm.
conversations about feelings. Um, I think it's quite natural for all of us when someone is maybe sharing something that's really hard, how maybe sad or overwhelmed or scared they feel. Especially if it's our loved ones, we don't want them to feel that way. It might be also hard for us to hear that. So we may be tempted to maybe minimize or dismiss or say, don't worry, everything will be okay. Whereas that may not necessarily help, right? It's with the best
Yeah,
intention that we may have.
right. So one partner says, God, I am so worried, I'm so scared. And the other partner says, oh, what are you worried about? It's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Each partner is doing what they know how to do. But
mm-hmm.
the way it lands on each other is, the partner who minimizes might cause the other partner feel, well, you don't care, you don't want to hear what I have to say, and
Right.
then tensions start to escalate.
Yeah.
So
Yes. And so, what we would encourage all of us and you to do is to really create space for these feelings, right? Maybe the best thing that we can do in those moments is just listen and be there and provide our presence. And that's it. And doing nothing in that moment, but being present is the best gift of connection that we can give.
right, I think that we kind of keep coming back to accepting each other's coping styles right now,
Yes, yes.
and not trying to change them, but work with each other around those coping styles.
Yeah.
Because you could have somebody who doesn't talk about it, but not talking about it doesn't mean he or she is not afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So it could
Absolutely.
come across and land on the person who externalizes a lot and likes to talk about it as somehow that person doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
But that person who's quiet about it could be quite afraid and just
Mm-hmm.
coping with it
Mm-hmm.
differently.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And these differences, I think, because people spend so much time together now, even though, couples usually know each other very well, but now that's an opportunity to be with each other almost 24/7. This time can really bring these differences up. And another difference that can come up is the need for space, right? So as
Right.
much as we're couples therapists and we encourage connection and we really build bridges between people and help them bond, there's some people may also need a little bit more alone time. And that doesn't mean it's disconnected time or lonely time, right? But just space to be with their own thoughts in their own minds so that they can recharge and reconnect. That can be quite challenging, especially, I mean, in New York City, everyone is pretty small quarters and there's no space, right? And the boundaries if especially you have more than one or two family members, get quickly blurred. So
Right,
how do you
right. And
navigate that?
well, I mean, it could be, when I say simple, it's not simple, but it could be as simple as saying, hey, can I go and take a half an hour in the
Mm-hmm.
other room and read my book? Would it
Mm-hmm.
be okay with you if I just had that time to myself?
Yeah. So asking
And,
for that space explicitly, asking for your needs, I guess, right?
right. And I think on the flip side of that is also asking for reassurance when you need it, or
Mm-hmm.
connection. Because as these coping strategies really kind of bubble up to the surface and become more apparent to each other as we're cooped
Mm-hmm.
up together,
Mm-hmm.
the one who is more externalizes feelings may need some reassurance from the person who minimizes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just tell me we're okay?
Mm-hmm.
Can you reassure me about our bond? Um, and how can people support each other that way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. That's very important. Um, another, I was also thinking when we talk about these differences, right, and different styles that may be affected right now by this period, is physical intimacy and sexual
Yeah,
intimacy between people. Because usually, when we live kind of surrounded by this perceived and real danger, that may impact our ability to get in touch with our more sensual and sexual selves for some people, right? The anxiety that can sort of really shut it off a bit for a period of time. Yet for others, it can be, for some partners, it can be the opposite. Looking for that sexual intimacy can be like a way of stress relief, and two partners in one couple can be on the very different pages about that,
right.
which can create conflict or disconnection or, um, this distance.
Right. So the way that people can start to engage in these
Mhm.
conversations is kind of leading with their own feelings, ideally.
Mhm.
You know, statements like "you never" or "you always" or "why don't you" um, can generally provoke some kind of defensiveness, and it will be hard for you to be heard. So as opposed to saying, "Well, you never want to hug me anymore,"
Yeah.
um, maybe you can say, "Hey, could I have a hug?
Mhm.
Would that be okay? I'm feeling really anxious today. I heard something on the news."
Mhm.
Um, so kind of the way you ask can
Mhm.
also help maintain the connection.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, and also having conversations, right, for you between you and your partner about where you are in terms of that physical intimacy as well, right? How are you processing things? How are you able to get in touch with your um, kind of more sensual and physical self and to be close with your partner or not? So you can just share that piece with them and vice
Hmm.
versa. And that even sharing can a bit soothe our brain and create more safety in the bond between you two.
I love how you said that. The idea of being able to share in kind of a safe place helps
Hmm.
to soothe our brains.
Yes, it
No matter
certainly
how
does.
whether we cope with it more internally or externalize it, these kind of safe conversations
Hmm.
do help to calm the nervous system and soothe our brains and make us more open to what each other is saying.
Yes. And I think that's the key point that we wanted to communicate today in this first episode is that how do you, first of all, not disconnect during this difficult time and really promote communication, promote turning to each other, even despite some of the differences that might be highlighted by the stress, right? And different coping strategies, different ways of processing emotions, talking about things, not talking about things. How do we, despite all these differences that might be apparent, uh, really still create space to share that, to understand, to turn to each other in these difficult moments.
Yeah, and I think maybe lastly, when people can kind of come together
Mm-hmm.
and notice when there's tension arising.
Mm-hmm.
I've helped couples even to come up with their own like word. One couple used the word
Mm.
pineapple when they noticed tension mounting, and it was a way to help them both slow down. In fact,
Nice.
one of them went out and bought a plastic pineapple and kept it in her bag. Uh, and when she sensed like they were in, like the tension was mounting, she'd take out the pineapple, and that was their cue to slow down. They understood that something was happening between them that was starting
Mm-hmm.
to
I
escalate.
love that. Yeah, that's a great strategy.
And so to recognize and try to catch these escalating moments and kind of join together to notice them and to slow things down before they really take off. That's hard to
Mm-hmm.
do, but that's what we're encouraging.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And when we come back, and hopefully we will bring in more couples and family therapists who can give us more tips and more strategies on how to slow things down, what to watch out for, and how to keep all of us stable, connected, and resilient during these difficult times.
Yeah. So thank you all so much for joining us in our Corona Survival Guide for couples and families. We will be coming back to you soon.
Okay, thank you,
Okay.
Jeff.
All right. Thank you, Irina.
Bye bye.